We love when the Dutch government does some goofy shit, and the Dutch government has done goofy shit. By which I mean it collapsed again. Why did the Dutch government collapse? It collapsed because of the far right. There you go. I've saved you like 4 pages of analysis. Seriously, they do this every fucking time. And this also means that like the other segment that I was talking about, that I was doing before the my like vacation, I now can't do because it's like wildly out of date because the government didn't collapse yet. So we're gonna kind of do a rehash of that. Why did the Dutch government collapse and what's next? Half our governments in history collapsed. Certified Netherlands moment. Dutch government collapsed after Geert Wilders pulled away from ruling right-wing coalition. Well, that's interesting. The Dutch government collapsed on Tuesday after the far-right politician Geert Wilders pulled out of the right-wing coalition after a dispute over anti-immigration measures his party had proposed. They were all having like a internal competition over who could virtue signal or vice signal harder about being like anti-immigrant and anti-immigration and shit. Like they really, really wanted that remigration bag or some shit. And there was like a minister in his cabinet that they were like, come on, what are you doing? What's the holdup? And then like they may or may not have been, I don't know, incompetent at what they were doing or something like that. Regardless, I think it was actually like kind of inevitable that when you have 4 far right parties in a coalition, it's gonna collapse. You know? Because the far right all hates each other. It's not like they like anything or anyone, you know? Wilders' decision prompted the Dutch cabinet and Prime Minister Dick Schoof, bro. And we think America isn't a real country. Damn, what a name to resign. Why did Wilders withdraw? Wilders announced that the withdrawal of his party, the PVV, you know, right-wing party, certified, from the 11-month-old right-wing Netherlands coalition government. Wilders said the other 3 parties in the coalition had failed to back his plans to crack down on asylum for refugees. See, this is what I mean. They were all competing about who can hate asylum seekers more, you know? No signature under our asylum plans. The PVV leaves the coalition. Okay, bye. Have a great time. The other 3 parties were the VVD, the BBB, and the NSC, all right-wing parties. And they were like, you guys aren't anti-immigrant enough. I'm taking the dodgeball and going home. And the dodgeball was the government, except, like, they actually just collapsed the government. Wait, so I was wrong. Geert Wilders is not the prime minister. Dick Schoof is the prime minister. Jesus fucking Christ, that name. He's just the leader of the party? I don't know how this works, truthfully. I kind of assumed that the leader of a given party in the ruling coalition would be the prime minister. So like the biggest party in the majority coalition or the ruling coalition, their leader was the prime minister, but like, oh, he should have been? Okay. So like there was some extenuating circumstance. Got it. That makes sense. May 26, Wilders announced a 10-point plan to extensively slash migration, deploying army officials at the Dutch land borders and rejecting all asylum seekers. Dude, they're taking so much of this shit just from like what America does. Like, here's the thing, right? A lot of countries in Europe were doing this in the 2010s, right? You know, during the Syrian refugee crisis, you know, a lot of anti-immigration sentiment was on the rise. Here's the thing. The United States was doing this shit in the 1990s. Like, we exported this kind of model of categorically turning people away. You know, I guess it's just one of the ways that America is like a cultural exporter of fascism, right? I know this is a deep cut, but there was, you know, there's perennial political instability in Haiti, but of course in the 90s this also applies. I think during the first Bush administration, this would be Bush Senior, or I guess it'd be the only Bush Senior administration, which was a Republican government. There was like a coup or something in Haiti, the government got toppled or something like that. I think it was like the Duvalier father and son who were dictators back to back. Anyways, a lot of refugees were coming over, Haitian refugees, and it was actually quite a controversy that a lot of immigration police, like immigration officers, whatever, were shooting the Haitian migrants as they were approaching the U.S. And the Fox News at the time was trying to justify their actions and like dehumanize immigrants by calling them boat people, and stuff like that. Because obviously Haiti, you'd have to come to the United States by boat. And that was a whole thing. They were being turned away. I think it might have only been a couple instances where they were shooting them or shooting at them. A lot of them didn't make it. But regardless, there's the same pattern of like, yeah, we hate immigrants so much that we'll literally deploy the military and threaten to kill you if you try to come into the country. He wasn't going to get a government if he was going to be president. So he had to step down and let someone else get that role. Oh, okay. I see. All right. That makes sense. The four parties cumulatively held 88 seats in the country's 150-seat House of Representatives. Oh, I was actually going to pull that up on Wikipedia, but yeah, okay. And they just explain it here. PVV won the latest November 2023 election with 23% of the vote, 37 seats, the highest number of seats in the parliament out of all parties. So they were the plurality. Majority rank in the House is 76 seats. The withdrawal leaves the coalition with only 51. When did Truth step down? I think we kind of know that, right? Yeah, it's the withdrawal, emergency cabinet meeting, and then Truth steps down. How did other Dutch leaders react? I'm not so interested in that part. What's next? Formally submit his resignation to the head of state, Dutch King Willem-Alexander. This guy doesn't have very much power in the Dutch government, as far as I know. Most of it happens in the parliament with like the prime minister and shit. Three remaining parties can't decide on who's going to bring a new minister of asylum for the remaining time until October, when there are new elections. They all wanted to show they're able to handle immigration so that they get all the votes in the next election. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Fucking stoke that far right infighting. That gives me life, dude. That's great. As of May 31, polls show that Wilder's PV has lost a little of its support, from 23 down to 20%. I'd say that's kind of significant, especially if that like you check back and they continue to lose support. I mean, obviously, I guess that's tautological, right? This brings the party almost at par with the Green Left Labour Alliance, which has 19% and 25 seats. Okay. Fragmented party of politics in the Netherlands makes it difficult to predict which party will win the election. I'm going to actually make some predictions here. Okay, that's kind of the end. The polls say the PVV is the biggest party, apparently because people feel like this is the moment for him to get a second shot, even though zero parties want to govern with him anymore. Yeah, and I think that actually plays into my predictions. I'm going to copy and paste a couple of Wikipedia articles on the composition of the Dutch Parliament so we can take a look at the parties that are here, and so that I can kind of talk about what I think should happen and is going to happen, because those are two different things. So let's start with the House of Representatives. As that article said, there's 150 seats. That's a lot of colors, very fragmented parliament, as you know, as we know. We have the parties down here. Okay, yeah. So here we have the PVV. We have GroenLinks PVDA, the Green Left Labour Alliance. This is the VVD, okay, and then the NSC. These are three of the four right-wing parties, and then where's the other one? That would be Forum for Democracy? No, that's FVD. Where's the fourth one? Oh, it was the BBB, of course. Well, how did I forget this? Yeah, there's the BBB right there. Okay. So we got this one, this one right here, this one right here, this one right here, and then this one up here. That was the coalition, but now they're gone, so it's just those three, and they don't have enough seats, right? The other parties in the Dutch parliament, God, it's kind of fragmented. FED is the most extreme one, next level conspiracy guy. Yeah, and they don't really have enough seats for that. but they do figure into my predictions of what might happen, right? This is the House of Representatives. Now let's take a look at the Senate real quick. Since, bicameral legislature, opposition 51, government 24. What's the majority here? Let's see, 75, so it would be 38. You'd have to have 38 seats in the Senate to make a 75, or not 75, 38 out of 75 seat majority. And it looks like nobody has like an opposition, like majority coalition in the Senate, right? So again, more credence to the claim that politics is very fragmented in the Netherlands. You have, let's see, BBB, and these guys, and then you have these guys, and where's the other one that I'm thinking of? Freedom. Do they not? Maybe they don't have a presence in the Senate. Maybe that'd be kind of crazy. 1, 2. Yeah, there's no new social contract here. Weird. Okay. What should happen? Or rather, first things first. This is, the song and dance that the Netherlands has been going through the past 5 or 6 years. I remember, I think it was like in 2019, the BBB was making waves. That was the first sort of far-right populist party that at least that I heard about, right? Me as an American learning about Dutch politics from the outside. Then over the course of like the 2020s, we have like 5 separate government collapses or something like that, all of which being the far-right coalitions because they hate each other's guts and they can't stop infighting, right? But here's the thing, right? They haven't done nothing. As much as the far right is incompetent, there have been a couple of things that they've gotten passed with respect to, I don't know, like austerity and like limiting migration, right? And the development of data centers. I think I actually covered that because I fucking hate that they're developing data centers for like AI or whatever the fuck, right? There have been some limited bad things that they've been able to do, which means that there's only so long that the country can withstand this until like the decline starts being more evident. It's just in an earlier stage of it where there's more cushioning when the far right party takes power, right? You're still on the stage where you can have a fascist party getting elected to government and that doesn't make it a fascist government. Does that make sense? Where in the United States, the situation was already unsteady and weak enough that a fascist party getting elected to government made it a fascist government, right? Here, it is still a very liberal government. It's like a liberal democracy, it's a social democracy, left over from the 20th century, just being run by incompetent fascists. They don't have the kind of institutional capture that's necessary to get that kind of control where they could just fuck everything up, right? The consent just isn't manufactured for that. But over time, they are going to make progress, little by little. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the rest of these parties, a lot of them are liberals. There's not very many left parties. Denk, the Socialists, GroenLinks, PVDA, Party for the Animals, and a couple of these are like bit players, right? They're not very large parties. The rest of these would be other right-wing parties or like liberals, but I kind of repeat myself there, right? You got Volt, J21, you got the crazy conspiracy guys, you got Christian Democrats, social liberals, which I guess maybe they could be considered on the left, right? But common to all of these, with the exception of a couple of the far right parties, is that they're all institutionalists. So if nothing changes, what I see happening is this kind of evolves into a painful, slow decline, right? Because there isn't really an out from that. You just go around in circles and whatever. And sure, for the next few cycles, it could be very entertaining to, get your popcorn and watch the far right shit themselves and the government collapse over and over again, which, would be funny. But it gets a little bit worse each time when there's not a significant rebuttal to that from the left, other than, haha, look at these guys go, look how dumb they are, right? You need something more. The current left parties are kind of institutionalists, and that leads to them being pretty ineffective in the face of rising populism, which means that when there is a populist party, even if they are as incompetent and boorish and like destructive and, self-hating as the far right, those guys are going to win over the institutional options. As much as, this is the Socialist Party, many socialist parties in Europe have kind of moderated over time. What there needs to be is a populist left option. We've seen this, shades of this in Germany, in France. The moment you introduce a populist left party, people will start flocking to it in droves, especially if they have any sort of social media acumen, if they have any ability to, like, post on TikTok, basically. If you get a bunch of fucking TikTok and Instagram e-boy and e-girl socialists up there, they'd never lose another election for 50 years, right? Like, basically, crisis averted, problem solved, right? Because they would be very critical of the kind of politics that leads to the far right parties getting into government and collapsing the government over and over again, chipping away a little bit with them each time, We had this in the United States and failed. We sort of had this cycle going back and forth where it would be the status quo for a while, like nothing substantial would really happen. And, even though there were some advances made, both parties were similar enough ideologically for a decent amount of time, but things got too chipped away. Eventually, the fascists did win. From the 1960s, that was like the last time these major gains were made. Through the energy crisis of the 70s up into the neoliberalism, the 80s and 90s and 2000s, it was just a slow decline where the Democrats and the Republicans were both institutionalists, and the moment populism was introduced, it took off. But by that point, it was already kind of too late to save American democracy. Here, it is not too late. And I say that with, like, what limited knowledge I have of European social democracies. Like I said, you get some e-boy, e-girl socialists that are saying, like, fuck capitalism, socialism is my autistic special interest, and they're as charismatic as like a fucking Fidel Castro or somebody, I don't know. And there's a very real chance to reverse a lot of this, to fix a lot of the like austerity politics and anti-immigration politics that basically creates the modern crisis, Especially because a lot of the modern crisis revolves around the relationship between these political parties and businesses and capital in the country. The moderating forces of social democracy include a sort of push down from above of the farming industry and whatever industries are very dominant in the country, because those industries are privately owned and they want their tax breaks, they want their big profits and revenues and stuff. But in order to do that, they have to kind of pull stuff up from the bottom. They have to, make a profit, which means somebody's not benefiting as much as they are, or they're extracting from somewhere, right? And that can only go on for so long. And we're now starting to run up against the limit that you can do with that, if that makes sense. Think of all the negative consequences that deregulation and stuff have had in the United States. The same forces are present in Europe. It'll take a while before we'll get a leftist government. People out here are way too focused on getting the immigrants out of here. Yeah, and I think for that reason, it's going to take time, right? These things, it's kind of hard to just wish them into existence, right? Like Germany and France only recently experienced this phenomenon. The far-right populism has already surfaced. It is going to be a while before the left-wing populism surfaces. The one saving grace for the Netherlands, like I said, is that there's some time left. There's still a bit of cushioning. It's not like the ground isn't super ripe for the fascist takeover, a comprehensive fascist takeover yet. But yeah, a lot of, like I said, this is kind of why, if there's a left populist option, they have to be very active on social media. The attitudes of being very anti-immigration, many institutionalist parties are not as familiar with the media landscape as a tool of messaging, especially with social media. They tend to view people's opinions as more set in stone, especially as you get closer and closer to the consultant class. Particularly, this is a critique that I and many other people have of the Democrats in America, is that they're not really willing to manufacture the consent for their political agenda, something that has constantly existed in politics. You have to argue for people to support your stuff, right? You have to make impassioned appeals over and over and over again and over time that can make a difference. So people are very anti-immigration right now, but with time and a really good social media presence, that can change. We've seen this in the opposite direction. People in America have gotten more anti-immigration over time because of the lack of a pro-immigration narrative. But when there was a pro-immigration narrative, people were very pro-immigration in America. Same thing with queer rights. Queer rights used to actually, in the like mid 2000s to 2010s, people were more pro-gay, like in the immediate aftermath, Jesus, of certain court decisions, like Obergefell, shout outs to the Americans that know what I'm talking about, that legalized gay marriage. The acceptance of queer people went up because the coverage of it was like, huzzah, gay people are allowed to get married now. Great, we have equal rights, and that's good, right? And that, there was news coverage, there was media messaging to that effect, and that actually changed people's minds. It convinced people that it was okay to be accepting of queer people, and it convinced people who were anti-queer to be a lot quieter with their views, and that actually changes the landscape over time. And now, because there's been a ramp up of anti-queer sentiment in the media, the trend has reversed. Now people are becoming more anti-queer. The queer acceptance is declining steadily, and I need to stress that this change is possible to be induced from the top down. Opinions can be manufactured in this way. This is how the right wing has had its success. Even though there are some organic pressures that prevent the decline from happening all at once, it operates in both directions, that if you say something loud enough, frequently enough, people will believe it. And it helps when it's true and when it's good and when you say it charismatically. The right wing doesn't have the advantage of it being correct or like good, but they do have the advantage of being charismatic in some cases and being willing to say it over and over and over again. So that's not set in stone. That's just like, forgive me for sounding like a college professor, lecturing students or whatever the fuck, right? But like, there is a road out of the sort of far right ascendancy, and it lies in like, I can't believe I'm saying this, it lies in like TikTok and Twitter leftists being able to organize a political party and like engage with their communities in real life as well. For sure, a good idea. Sadly, the leader of the leftist party isn't very popular either. Yeah, and that's what I got at earlier. Even though it is very cool that the GL PVDA like coalition exists, there's still the flaw that they are legacy parties. These are parties that have been around for quite a while. They are very institutionally ingrained and not the most fertile ground for populism. Now, it's not unheard of for parties like this to turn into left populist parties. We've seen this in France, where various existing parties have organized and reorganized into new coalitions, now being the Nouveau Front Populaire, the New Popular Front, and they have a populist message that is very popular. But yeah, right now, this is why a lot of left parties in Europe, nominally left parties, are not super well liked, is because they are kind of they've moderated a lot. They've become more ingrained institutionally, and people see them as representative of the political establishment, right? Very nebulous concept, but generally it's like, my life hasn't gotten a whole lot better, and these guys have been in charge for a significant part of that, even if it's only for a few years or whatever. They were already a part of the government. Why haven't they been doing anything? You kind of have to change that dynamic. Although, like I said, it's not unheard of for parties like this to become populist, but it is also an option for like a new party to arise, because some of these parties are quite small. It takes organizing, it takes time, it takes somebody being willing to like go on Instagram and TikTok and post repeatedly about like how leftism is cool actually, and how the farm industry is getting so many subsidies, they're taking so much profit here, and we all need food, so why don't we just like collectivize this? Why don't we nationalize it and have it be in the form of cooperatives? Why can't we like force them to include workers on the boards, you know, on like the what is it, the board of executives, board of directors, that's what it is, and stuff like that. Stuff that makes capital mad. This is one of the things that prevents institutional parties from being able to do a whole lot, is that, like, in order to be effective at being populist, you have to challenge power. You have to challenge institutional power. You have to challenge capital. You have to basically make businesses mad at you and make all the, like, rich farmers whine about it. And a lot of institutional parties rely on their connections to, well, existing institutions. And that includes the big rich farmers that will whine at you if you're mean to them. So we got to get some people in there that are willing to be mean to them. Anyways, leftist meme, that is the current state of the Netherlands. In the meantime, enjoy your popcorn and post on TikTok about how, you know, fuck the farming industry, actually, because they suck and all these data centers suck, or something like that. Cut the segment. Thanks for watching, and support the channel if you would be so kind.